Hey, it's the Ray Rican, and today I'm going to talk about white supremacy and the nonsense behind all of it, and really what it basically. Uh, Here's the whole thing about this whole nonsense with white supremacy. It's the boogeyman. It's basically what's going on with that is even with when it came to racism, with racism's dying. Okay, accepted racism is dying. Okay, it's been dying for years. You know, there's subtle stuff that happens, and that stuff is being unacceptable too. But it's like Booker T. Washington talked about how there's people who need to keep race and racism alive because it's their livelihood. Without it, how could you got the Al Sharptons of the world? Then they need to keep race the issue because without it, they have nothing else. And basically, yesterday I talked about DeSantis and the cultural Marxists fighting against cultural Marxism. And here's an example, when they talk about the fact that Biden is talking about white supremacy and how we need to be scared of white supremacy. Um, it's just it's just crazy. I mean, when you see stuff, I'm going to show you. Um, maybe I'll even play for you what Biden said. Let's see. Here's something from was it Bongino.com. Biden falsely claims white supremacist terrorism a greater threat than ISIS and Al Qaeda. Now, here's the thing. And even before this, I read this article. I already knew one thing that they do. One of the things they usually do is they'll tell you, "Hey, you know, domestic extremists, white supremacists have, you know, have killed more people since um, 2002." Let me give you for an example. They've killed more people since 2002 than um, you know ISIS, Al Qaeda, you know, Islamic terrorism, right? But notice they'll say 2002, but what happened 2001? That's what they'll talk about. Or here, like in this article, they point out here, where is it here? Um, oh, he talked about that too. Whether it's white supremacists or Islamic extremists that are America's biggest terror threat determines what timeline we're looking at. Given that 9/11 resulted in more deaths than every white supremacist terror incident in the 21st century combined by a country mile, it cannot possibly be the case that white supremacist terror is a greater threat than Islamic terror overall. And here goes another thing where he goes, this person, the person who wrote this article put, I've debunked previous versions of this argument years ago, and the latest iteration comes from a Homeland Security report that spawned headlines such as this one over at CNN. White supremacists remain deadliest U.S. terror threat. As one learns on the 18th page of the report, however, this is based on a sample size of 1 year of data from 2018 to 2019. American domestic violence extremists, racially and ethnically motivated violent extremists, specifically white supremacist extremists, will remain the most persistent and lethal threat to the homeland, reads the key message of the report. Nothing that from 2018 and 2019, white supremacists conducted half of all lethal attacks, 8 total among domestic violent extremists, resulting in 39 out of 48 deaths that year from domestic extremism. For reference, the 2016 ISIS inspired Pulse nightclub massacre alone killed 49 people, more than all of the white supremacists combined in 2018 and 2019. And this is the whole thing. They talk about, I remember reading something somewhere where they talk about, let's say white supremacist in jail kills a black or Latino inmate. They'll call that a white supremacist terrorist attack. And it's like, okay, is it, it's a white supremacist attack to something that happened in prison. But this is how statistics are manipulated. And someone who took statistics, someone who's is a sociology major, that's sociology is my degree. I know how statistics work, and I know how they manipulate them, and that's how they'll do it. Like I gave you the previous example of the whole thing with 9/11, and it's like, 3,000 people, 3,000 plus people died on 9/11, and we're worried about, um, let's if let's give for example, let's look at Charlottesville, when they always talk about that, that was white supremacist. Let's say that person was a white supremacist. How many people did that guy kill? One. That's it. One. And it's still despicable, but at the end of the day, that person killed one. When an Islamicist goes to attack, they don't kill one person. They go and they'll get a car, run over a bunch of people. They'll blow up a building. They'll blow, attempt to blow something up. They do a mass shooting. Pulse Club wasn't alone. You had the Fort Hood incident. So, why are they doing this? Why are they pushing this whole narrative of white supremacy? Because that's how Marxists are infiltrating. This is how they infiltrated academia. Because um, instead of saying, well, critical theory states that, because the class system. Well, guess what? In America, you're class mobile. You're not. If you work hard enough, you could stop being poor and work your way up. And even if you don't do it in your generation, if you instill those values into the next generation, you'll push them up. Okay. But since Marxists saw that they couldn't uh, push class in this country, they moved to race. So what's widely being accepted now? Critical race theory. I've talked about this, CRT. So here's a good article. I grabbed this, and I also grabbed a couple of basic. It's all about here. You're going to see what I'm talking about. Here's from Yahoo News. White supremacy is the root of all race-related violence in the U.S. And then they make it authoritative because they're like, from Jennifer Ho, professor of Asian American Studies, University of Colorado Boulder. And then, he goes here, amid the disturbing rise in attacks on Asian Americans since 2020 is a troubling category of these attacks. Black people also attacking Asian Americans, and it goes here, white people are the main perpetrators of anti-Asian racism, which as of right now is BS. But in February 2021, a black person pushed an elderly Asian man to the ground in San Francisco. The man later died from his injuries. Blah, blah, blah. Look, listen. She's trying to downplay this because she wants a push. She's talking about that attack to try to downplay what's really going on, because it goes here. So white supremacy is an ideology, a pattern of values and beliefs that are ingrained in nearly every system and institution in the US. It's a belief that to be white is to be human and invested with inalienable universal rights, and that not to be white means you are less than human. Yes. Now tell me, where in our system of government where is this now? Where do people believe this now? Because if that's the case, Biden's the president now. Does he believe this? No, but this is what they're doing. And so if you go into, it goes here. Where was it? Where I wanted to see, where she talked about. Let me go back to just. Sometimes I get ahead of myself. The point I've made through all of these experiences is that anti-Asian racism has the same source as anti-Black racism. white supremacy. So when a black person attacks an Asian person, the encounter is fueled by perhaps by racism, but very specifically by white supremacy. White supremacy does not require a white person to perpetuate it. And there it goes. Okay. So that's at the root of all the issues here. Okay. So when you look at her and you go, okay, look, she's a professor of ethnic studies, Colorado. So you know what? I'm gonna go to the Gateway Pundit also, but even that, I just pulled up her page on Colorado EDU. So she has a PhD in English. She has a master's in English, and she has a BA in English. So she is a master manipulator of language, because that's what an English major does. They're good with using words. Okay, that's why I couldn't be an English major. I suck, but uh, I could read between the lines. And here goes. So so this is what they tell you right here. These are her degrees. But then here we go. Research interests: Asian American literacy and cultural studies, intersectionality, critical race studies, anti-racist theory and praxis. Anyway, critical mixed race studies. But these are the two big things right there: are intersectionality and critical race studies. The fact that once you throw in critical race studies, it's really sad, because it goes here. She's the daughter of a refugee father from China, okay, and immigrant mother from Jamaica. Her father brought her to this country probably to escape communism, and her daughter goes into the American university system and becomes a Marxist, because the minute you accept critical race theory, you're a Marxist. You really are, because what it is critical theory was about class. Critical race theory is now race instead of class, because we can't change our race. And the whole thing with critical theory was, back in the day you couldn't change a class. You could change a class now. America is not a class-based system, in the sense that yeah, there are classes in society. We are stratified, but we can jump from class to class at any given time in our lives. I grew up poor in the Lower East Side. Now I have I had a house in two different states. Not currently, but just one at a time. I just meant, had a house in Texas, had a house in Pennsylvania, and so forth and so forth. So, anyways, so you could go from the bottom to the top to the middle at any given time. You could be someone that's rich. I mean, how many times have we seen athletes who've become rich and now they're like dirt poor because they didn't know how to take care of their money? Same thing with how many famous actors or actresses went from, you know, top of their career to rock bottom. It happens. We're not, you're not doomed to be in one class in this country. And that's why Marxism never fully took root here, because people saw that you could change your status in life. But that's, but you can't change your skin color. You can't change being Latino. These are characteristics that you cannot change, and they're using it by painting the brush of white supremacy on everything. Okay, that's what they're doing. They're putting white supremacy as the changing. They're changing. They went from, the original sin of the U.S. is slavery and racism, to now the sin is white supremacy. And where they're going with this is just the fact that where they're going from this, they're just basically using this as, this is the way they're going to, this is why we got to fight the cultural Marxists, because they're using this to transform our country. That's why, it's key where, it's funny, if you haven't watched my videos, the past couple of days go from when I, from the other day when I spoke about um, Biden being the third term of Obama. Yesterday, I talked about the DeSantis fighting cultural Marxism, and today I'm talking about the BS of white supremacy. It all goes hand in hand because this is what Obama talked about when he wanted to fundamentally transform the U.S. It's like, how do I do it? Now you have these critical race theories that now it's being like widely accepted, and so the notion of white supremacy is being widely accepted when it's a fringe ideology. It's not a widely accepted ideology. Critical race theory is a more accepted ideology than white supremacy. But here we are. I have to talk about, you know, the way Biden and the Democrats are making it out to be. Is like there's a white supremacist on every corner, and it's nonsense. It's complete and utter garbage. And it's what's destroying and dividing this country is the fact that, are there racists in this country? Of course. There's going to be racists everywhere. Look, listen, you had the hoodies and the tutus in Africa, and they were killing each other. They were the same race, but they didn't like each other. It's like Puerto Ricans and Dominicans. We don't like each other. We're the same, pretty much we're the same race. We're both Caribbean. But for some reason, with different cultures, we don't like things about each other. And sometimes it manifests physically. But that doesn't mean that, let's say Puerto Ricans are keeping the Dominicans down because we're citizens. No, it's, but they'll use these type of divisions to bring in the Marxism. That's what they're talking about. That's why they want to end. That's why they want to end the filibuster. That's why they're talking about, Obama talked about how, and it's going up there because I've seen people talk. I seen the nonsense. I seen the nonsense on discussions on I'm so in NYC, something I follow on Facebook, where I see people talking about this where the hell is white supremacists in New York City? Where? Show it to me. Show me where you see someone walking around, or there's a store that has Nazi flags, and SS armbands and stuff, and they're selling Nazi paraphernalia. Show me when they're having the white supremacy meetings, because it's ridiculous. It's the boogeyman. It's the way they're going about scaring us. So like that, we could accept the cultural Marxism. So like that, we could. That's how they're gonna. Anyway, I went into my tangent, and what I wanted to talk about was how with Obama, when he was talking about um, that. Oh, it's not. It's it's. I'm gonna paraphrase it, because basically saying it's messed up that, let's say Los Angeles County, that's a blip, has as many senators as like a whole swath of, like, let's say, Montana, um, Wyoming, um, Idaho, and all that stuff. All those smaller populated states, that they have more senators than Los Angeles does. And this is where, when Obama says stuff like this is what always pissed me off, because then people go, oh yeah. And it's like, and I see people talking about, like, a friend of mine shared it on Facebook, and I told them that, yeah, fine. Yeah. Each of those states has 2 senators, but that's the way the Senate was built. The Senate was not a direct population representation. That's what the House of Representatives is for. That's why California has so many representatives. But you can't change that's what I talk about when he talked about fundamentally changing this country. It's like, no, you obviously didn't love this country because you want to fundamentally change things that make this country great. And the fact that they have people in the big cities eating this up, falling for a hook, line, and sinker. You have someone that's saying, oh well, I love this country, but let's change it completely. No, you can't love this country and then change the fact that the fact that that was one of the beauty of the systems that was created. The fact that you had the smaller states were still able. That's why we have a federalism. It was to separate the powers of the states and the federal government. But if you're going to make it by population, then these small states are going to are going to get run over by this by the larger states. If you take away the senators, if you make it just direct representation by population, then these small states are going to just they're always going to lose. And that's not the way the system was built. But if you're going to, but this is what's going on, why I say be careful when they're talking about white supremacy everywhere. Especially look, you blacks and Latinos, they get us with our emotions. Because look, listen, I'm up in arms. I understand we're emotional, but we also have to be logical and understand what's going on. They're trying to change this country from capitalist to what's going to happen is they want to they're never going to be able to do it instantaneously. They're just pushing as hard as they can. It's always going to be incremental because the more the country is moderate, then you have the people who just get radicalized. And the irony behind that is they talk about that the radicalizations on the right, but that's, it's like I've seen a bunch of my friends that were moderates that all of a sudden it's like how far left they've moved in the past 20 years, where there's people I love I can't talk politics with because they've become so left wing that where we used to see eye to eye and stuff, they've moved so far left that I, I'm I just don't talk, because if we talk about that, it's going to be an argument, and it's I'm not going to change their mind. But that's why I say to people, right leaning people, if you have relatives who are moderates and you see that they're buying into some of this stuff, like this white supremacy stuff, or this stuff about changing the government, ending the filibuster, and all that stuff, talk to them. Get just like I said, incrementalism. Don't push them. Don't try to get them to agree everything with you that you agree with, that you think about, whether you're two-way or freedom of speech, anything. Find one little thing that you can get them to agree with you on, especially like a topic like this where you know white supremacy is being used as a boogeyman. It's being used to get us to move us forward, to progress us to Marxism. That's what it's you being used for. Because critical race theory, that's all it is. It's Marxism disguised. Um, it's a Marxism disguised in uh, racial justice. This may be one of the better ways to describe it. But it's really their solution is Marxism. That's it. At the end of the day, when you read their positions, that's what their solution is Marxism. And that's what you got to be careful with when these people when they're screaming white supremacy. That's a dog whistle, as they like to say. They're when they scream white supremacy, it's a dog whistle. It should pick up that hair on the back of your neck and say cultural Marxist, critical race theory, cultural Marxist. Be careful with what they're saying, because what they're spewing is pretty much, I'm gonna say, it's hate. It's hate. It's hate for this country. It's hate for our diversity. Because what they're preaching is that they're not preaching unity. They're preaching further division. I mean, when your motto is, you know, to be anti-racist means that you have to have racist policies for the future, or was it, I forget, was it racist policies of the past? The solution is racist policies in the future, something like that. But yeah, people, you need to be careful with this white supremacy nonsense. That's all it's there for, is for division, and they need it fed. They need it fed. No, we got to fight it. We got to unite. Um, Blacks and Latinos, we got to wake up our other black and brown people. We got to do it. We got to wake them up, because if not, that's how we're going to lose the republic. Because that's the thing. We're not a democracy. We're a republic, and we'll lose the republic if we let them win. This is a battle that we got to fight. And us black and browns, there's a lot of white people there that are on our side. They just stay silent because they're afraid of being called white supremacists, being called racist. And you know what? It's a club that they wield. They even try it on lighter skinned Latinos like me, and I just tell them, that's what I tell them. um, I give them the finger, because, yep. Or any Friends fans? Anyways, I've been on a Friends kick, so I'm gonna leave it there because I've been talking for, wow, it's gonna be almost half an hour. I've been talking. This is just something that really I was listening to, and then I was reading, and it was pissing me off. So I hope it pisses you off, and lights fire in your belly, and you start to do something about it. Because if you love this country, we need to fight this ideology. And it's not the white supremacist ideology; it's the people who are making it out that white supremacy is everywhere. These critical race theorists, we got to fight them. We have to fight them tooth and nail, because, like I said, at the end of the day, it's just cultural Marxism, and it's just part of the cultural revolution they're trying to start here in this country. All right. Well, thank you for listening to me. I'm the Right Rican. You can follow me on YouTube and Rumble. You can follow me also on social media. I am on Facebook, Twitter, and Gab. So, anyways, have a good one.